excited to join the land of the bookish again. I've been kind of MIA from my Bookstagram account, and I took last week off from here as well because I've been just really busy with stuff in life. Job stuff, family stuff, and we got a new puppy who hopefully will trot her way through here as I film this. So, very excited to be back with you and bring you my May reading wrap-up. This month is all about marriage thrillers. Yes, marriage thrillers. Being married is not just a bore, it's not just happily ever after. Sometimes it means crappily ever after. So, let's dig right in. So excited. The first one is going to be The Invited by Jennifer McMahon. This is a book in which the basic premise is that people build a haunted house. It's kind of a twist on what you're used to. The wife keeps bringing home all of these haunted materials to try and summon a ghost who she isn't quite sure if the ghost is evil or if the ghost is well-meaning. But she builds this house as almost a shrine to the ghost so that they can practically co-inhabit. I found this part to be very difficult to wrap my head around. So I thought that was kind of wacky. It was a little bit wackadoodle. But the book was really interesting. Now, it did go off the rails a little bit at the end. I find that to be kind of a hard thing to resist in suspense books and thrillers, sometimes in horror. I find it hard for the authors to resist the urge to go off the rails at the end. Sometimes it makes for a really fun and wacky experience. Sometimes it's like, you just lost me. You just lost me. All the suspense you had built has just turned wacky. It went a little bit wacky. Still good, still good. Now, I saw the twist coming from a mile away. I figured it out really early on in the book. That's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's wonderful to have that element of surprise that can just throw you for a big shock. But it doesn't necessarily ruin the book for me or make me feel this prideful sense of superiority over the book if I figure out the twist ahead of time. Sometimes that's okay, but in this case, maybe the twist was a little too obvious. Maybe the tell was, it came a little bit too early. Still an interesting book. I liked it. It was worth my time, and I think it would be worth yours as well. Alright, the next book I'm going to talk about is Before She Knew Him by Peter Swanson. This is yet another marriage thriller. That's the theme for the month after all. In this book, the married couple, Hen and Lloyd, are, kind of young marrieds, and they get these new neighbors who are another young married couple, but Hen quickly suspects the neighbor Matthew of being a murderer. Now, the threads that connect Matthew to this supposed murder that happened a long time ago are a little bit stringy. The strings are stringy. They're a little bit tenuous at best. I think it's a huge leap that Hen made in the story that makes it a little bit unbelievable. The other part for me that was a little bit unbelievable was Hen's reaction whenever she confronted Matthew about it. It's almost like they formed this shaky relationship. So I feel like there are a lot of strings tying a lot of people and a lot of events together that I don't think the strings necessarily connect. It feels like the strings are kind of loose and flopping all over in the wind, and we're supposed to be bridging these connections between these events and these people, and I'm just not buying it. It makes it a little bit difficult for me. Again, still an interesting book. And reading through Hen's dealing with her mental illness also, and that making her an unreliable narrator, kind of built another layer onto the story that wasn't quite there before, and so it was nice to read through that. It didn't necessarily villainize her mental illness, which was refreshing because that's been kind of turning into a pet peeve of mine, because it seems like a lot of times mental illness is turned into a antagonist in a story. So it was nice to see that just be a part of who she was and almost a scapegoat, as opposed to the reason that she goes crazy and murders them all. The other book I'm going to talk about today is As Long as We Both Shall Live by Joann Chaney, and I just love this author. I had previously given rave reviews to her other book, What You Don't Know, because it's so gritty. It's just, it goes there, and that's what I want in a thriller, and what I seem to come up still wanting by the end of the thriller. Sometimes things get soft pedaled a little bit too much. I feel like Joann Chaney is one who will go there, and that's what I admire. She goes there again in this book with Matt and Marie, a married couple who, I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give too much away, but let me say that this just reminded me of the War of the Roses and how much this couple hated each other. Woo, there was no love lost, none at all. So it starts off with Marie has gone missing, and then of course, the spotlight of suspicion is shining brightly on Matt, because his first wife had also died under suspicious circumstances. Not a good track record, Matt. You got 2 wives who have died suspiciously. What you gonna do when they come for you? It's not looking good. So that's what happens here, and the story unravels, and again, I don't want to spoil it, but as it unravels, you find out more and more. There's so many twists and turns, and it goes to these filthy, vile depths in both of the characters that you wouldn't initially think of. Oh, it's just delicious. Such a good book, such a good author. I can't wait to read more from her. All right, the last book I'm going to talk about today is For Better or Worse by Margot Hunt, and it is another goodie, but not without its flaws. It features Natalie and Will, a longtime married couple whose marriage has kind of been on the downward slope. Will has trouble being faithful. Natalie has trouble really seeing her family in anything other than just a taskmaster role, because that's the role that she's really been put in. Both Natalie and Will are attorneys. Their relationship started 15 years prior, in which they were discussing the perfect murder. Is it possible? Can it happen? If so, how? Fast forward back to present day, and they have found out that their young son has been molested by the school principal. What are you going to do? It's the ultimate revenge fantasy. If you found out that something that horrific happened to your child, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? This book goes there. It goes there, and Natalie does just what you think that you would do in the same situation. But of course, Natalie makes a lot of mistakes, a lot of stupid mistakes. And it's hard to see Will as anything other than slimy. So I feel like this book had quite a bit of flaws, and maybe could have gone a bit further in those feelings that they would have had in dealing with that and in helping their son deal with it, as opposed to turning into the ultimate revenge fantasy. And I didn't really buy that Natalie would make so many stupid mistakes. The way that she's set up earlier in the book is that she is nobody's fool. She does not make mistakes. Everything happens on purpose when it's on her watch. And so for so many things to go wrong in this scenario that she had cooked up, just doesn't really stick. Doesn't really stick. So we saw like 4 different themes in the 4 different books. Of course, the overarching theme is that marriage is scary, dangerous, treacherous business. But we saw in the first book we discussed, The Invited, the theme was, let's build a haunted house. Word to the wise, don't build a haunted house. And before she knew him, the theme was neighbors from hell. Let's become BFFs. Don't become BFFs with the neighbor from hell. It's not good business. And as long as we both shall live, the theme is the War of the Roses. How much can 2 spouses hate each other? Why not just get a simple divorce and be done with it? Much easier. No muss, no fuss. Call it a day. And then the final book we talked about, For Better or Worse, the theme is the perfect murder. Is there such a thing as the perfect murder? How does one get away with murder? You can't. It's harder than you think it is, as evidenced by Natalie and her many, many mistakes, and Will and his bumbling along. So, interesting month, interesting list of reading I had there. I think I might need to read something a little bit more refreshing and uplifting next month to restore my faith in humanity a little bit. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it, as always. I can't wait to hear your thoughts and about what you read this month, and I will catch you next time. Thanks again. Bye. Lulu, what are you eating? What are you eating, girl?